Welcome everyone to the Tesla Beat podcast, number 51. So we have now surpassed 50 episodes. Pretty insane to see, how much time we've been going now. And as we know, there's never a dull week in the Tesla world. It's just always something going on. Some big changes overall this week to some of the organizations at Tesla, along with Elon just jumping on a plane and making big deals with the Chinese government, potentially having FSD go out there. So we're going to get into all of that. And we have Brighter Herbert with us. Brighter with Herbert with us. He's been somewhat of a regular here. I know I've done some shows with him as well. And so, he is covering Tesla on a daily basis. So we're going to get caught up with him on, just his thoughts overall on Tesla as they've been making these changes over the past couple of weeks. And we may have Hans joining us in about 20 minutes. We'll see if he can make it. But outside of that, Herbert, welcome to the channel.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Love this channel. Love you guys. Appreciate the invite.
Welcome. Yeah, well, thank you for coming. And we're excited for you also to attend your first takeover this summer. Assuming all things go well.
He's saying that because last year I was about to go. Last day I had some issues. I hope this one works out well this year.
Yeah, exactly. But hey, but yeah, thank you for your time today. And thank you for coming so short notice. But we would love to, you follow Tesla every day. You're, constantly, it feels like 2 or 3 live streams, literally pretty much every day. If not 2 or 3 videos. And so, it's easy. We also, Joe and I would say, we feel like we definitely live in a bubble, but what are your thoughts on, all the stuff going on with, the layoffs, even more layoffs happening this week. But as far as like the org changes, we don't have to talk about FSD China quite yet, but what are your personal thoughts on, everything that's going on? Are you a fan of this? Is this a normal thing that businesses use or initiate as they transition? What are your personal thoughts?
Yeah, I've been obviously interviewing as many people about this, and in just most recently, Stephen Mark Ryan, which I'll publish this weekend on the Sunday. And my feeling, and the word I've been using, is tectonic. I think that what happened at the earnings call, which is 2 weeks ago now, and then the China visit, and then the layoffs, all of this is tectonic changes. The company is completely different than it was 3 weeks ago. That's my personal opinion. I think many people share that opinion. What's happened is Elon is now come in, and another word I've been using is sledgehammer, right? He's using a sledgehammer, completely changing the organization as he transitions it from a car company, his own words, into an auto company, right? Autonomous, FSD, AI, robot company. And in order to make that leap to change from a car company, it needs a lot of reorganization. So this layoff, obviously, it's not a good thing for the people affected. Absolutely understand that. But for a CEO to do this to a company, it's almost like the death knell if you don't do this, right? Especially if you want to grow. This layoff wasn't here because they needed to, save monies because they're on the way down. They're on the way up, and this company is going to transition. And in order to do that, you need different people. And what I loved about the Q1 earnings, again, if you just look at it from a financial investor perspective, not trying to, downplay how this is impactful to the people that were laid off, but right, he laid them off to invest it in AI. And so the estimate that I initially read was $1 billion of savings per year. But Jeff Lutz, who's obviously ran mega companies like this before, and he's kind of just take a look at the people that were laid off in China versus the ones in Europe, engineers versus others. He thinks it could be around $2.5 to $3 billion of savings per year. And this is areas where it's not the areas that need to grow this year or next year. Hence, that's why I see why he did the Supercharger. It's the folks not building the Superchargers, the folks that are looking to expand it and new locations. And so just strategic decisions of where to save the money, but I'm happy because he's investing in AI. So I've been saying this, Alexandra and I have been, talking about this for 3-4 months now. We think that Tesla should be investing, we actually use the number $10 billion at the minimum in AI. And they've confirmed that they were doing this. In order to do that, right, you need to get that money somewhere, and it just makes sense. So it's a reorganization of the company. It's a rebirth of the company because honestly, right, you tell me, right, in the last week, everybody understands now that this is a car company because they're making new vehicle models using existing production line, using existing factories that's going to address a larger TAM. And then they're going all in on robotaxi because the technology now works. They can see a path for it to end up to level 4, level 5. And then now it's time to put in the software and the support, and the whole company can reorganize to that. It's going to become a subscription company. And then, the reiteration that they're going to do bots next year. It's going to be in a factory this year, and it's going to be sold next year. That part was shocking to me because I had always thought the first 1,000, first 5,000 would be used by Tesla themselves, and then maybe there's some suppliers for them to sell it to customers next year. That's a much faster than I think anybody thought. You know what I mean? So they've got a solution for Q2. He said it's going to be higher than Q1. It's a solution for the whole year, which is going to be about the same amount. It's a lost year for car sales. Automakers across the board are suffering, and you can see that in their Q1 results. Everyone is suffering badly, but Tesla is going to, maybe just stay flat for this year for auto, but they're transitioning out of it. So for me, everything you heard was just absolutely positive news, and it's a great thing for the future of the company.
Yeah, and my question is like maybe whether it's on your channel, but also too, I think even before probably the past 2 or 3 weeks, I think I would say that I don't want to call it investors, but you can call it Tesla community, Tesla investors. It was pretty down, right? I mean, you hit a bottom of like 140.
Yeah.
And now, everyone was like, oh, Elon's like sleeping and not doing stuff, even though he has constantly said that, hey, like most of my time actually goes to Tesla, right? That's at the end of the day, his baby. It does probably take the most of his time. SpaceX, obviously, if they were public, it probably would take even more time, just the amount of scrutiny. But specifically, like, what are, the people that were complaining that, hey, he's not around, and then he gets involved. He's starting to make changes. And, Google actually just did a whole bunch of layoffs. Unfortunately, I have some friends in the Bay Area who were laid off. But what they told me is they're laying off a bunch of people and then reinvesting those positions into AI. And so it seems like the same thing is happening really across, a lot of these big tech companies in general, as they're making huge transitions into this new space. But what are your thoughts, or what have you seen, the change of position happening even over the past couple of weeks?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, it's obviously, you're absolutely correct, right? The mood for Tesla for the last 3 years is flat, and then it just got worse and worse and worse for the last 6 months, last 3 months, and you see the stock falling, and then everybody said there's no floor, it's going to keep going down. And a lot of people kept saying, right? You saw this, earnings next year is going to be $2. There is no earnings growth. We're going to actually sell less cars this year than last year. They lost the second growth wave because they're no longer doing the Model 2 compact car, and they're just betting it all on this options called the robotaxi. And so you saw some of our bulls that were very supportive of Tesla, or who believes that Tesla stock is a great investment, fall off the wayside, right? They were there. And the thing that bothered me the most is not that, if you're an investor, you're absolutely correct. You can say, I don't think it's a good investment right now. I'm going to take my money and put in NVIDIA and others, which a lot of people have done. That's a great decision. Go ahead and do that. But I don't like it when I see a person who thinks that Tesla is a great investment one day turn around and start bashing it, and actually attacking it, and then saying completely opposite things of what they were saying before, when the only thing that might have changed is, let's call it fundamentals, if you believe that that's the case. Now, there's a lot of us who see the company very differently than others, right? I mean, I'm sure the three of us here and many others who are long-term Tesla investors, I scratch my head, and like I'm really literally having these discussions with people, and I go, what? You're looking at it based on short-term? I'm looking at it based on long-term. And that, in fact, if anything, this company now is addressing the bot market, which is the largest $44 trillion job, labor market. It's addressing robotaxi, and they're making mass, like The moment, like the last January, right? We all saw FSD 12 is actually now the light at the end of the tunnel. You can actually see it improving so fast. And that's a time that people said, I'm going to pull my money out. But they're right. You know what I mean? Like the answer is that we're both right at the same time. If you're short term, you're absolutely correct. But I'm long term, I could also be correct. And so what's playing out now is that this is the other thing I keep laughing about or just kind of amused about is that how quickly the sentiment can turn. So somebody will say to you, Tesla's a terrible company, a terrible company. And they'll go, it will never. And then I put it on a spreadsheet and their earnings next year is going to be $2. There's nothing going to grow. This is a terrible company. They don't know what they're doing. They'll do that. And I'm like, I don't see what you're doing because I'm looking at product, I'm looking at business, I'm looking at strategy, and I'm looking at Elon. And I know that I wouldn't want any other person in charge of Elon. We know that he can actually, sign deals with the leaders of every country. And literally 2 weeks later, the whole thing changes. And then some people come back and say the opposite of what they said 2 weeks ago. And it's like, okay, that's fair, but it's just, please, those are the people I'm looking at going, man, I wish that you were just a little bit more clear and consistent with your thinking and stop flip-flopping. It's those people that bother me more. But if you said to me, hey, I want to put my money somewhere else, fair, but don't attack, don't bash, don't tell me that this company's terrible when that's not what I saw. And we were proven correct, right?
Yeah, there's a quote by Abraham Lincoln, the very measure of a person is how they handle adversity. So you'll see like these people that, the tough times will weed out a whole bunch of people. it just happens. So yeah, I mean, I think everything you're saying is spot on. We've seen it flip flop from even last January before January hit, everybody was calling for Elon's head, and then next thing you know, it's like the numbers go up and then people are like, you know what? Yeah, things are okay. And so people think with their wallet a lot of times instead of like thinking about the company. And I've always had that strong belief that as long as the fundamentals don't change, the people are still making cars. They're making hundreds of thousands of cars. And the nearest competitor is not even like at that level. So unless the fundamentals change, I can't see anything about going anyway.
There are two people I spoke to recently, and I ask this question quite often to people, especially institutional analysts. That they will say something like the stock price is something; it's telling you something, and I'm like, or they'll say the stock price is never wrong. The stock market is never wrong.
Does it speak to you?
No, I swear to you, I've gotten institutional analysts and other investors who have said this specifically, that the stock price is never wrong. And I get what they're saying, which is it's buyers and sellers, it's a market. So whatever the stock price is, that is what, the buyers and sellers are saying. Whereas my perspective is the stock price is always wrong. Right? That I'm looking at opportunity and I see something with the business and the metrics and fundamentals and all that. And this is wrong. And then that's why, you're making the bet. It's at the end of the day, it's a gamble, but you know what I mean? Like how's the stock, people who make decisions based on the stock price, right? It's falling, I'm going to sell. It's rising, I'm going to buy. What?
Well, and honestly, if the stock price was always right, then how do you actually make money? Do you buy on the way up or buy on the way down? But then that means you have to be really good at following stocks pretty much on a daily basis. And maybe people do that, but the people that end up doing, well, I don't want to, but I think the people that end up doing the best in the long run are the people that, find stocks that they see the potential and potentially are big fans of. Like when I got in my Tesla, I just knew that this was the future. I knew that this was the future of driving. Obviously, I had no idea that this company would eventually be doing robots. Even if they just stuck to auto, this is really the future. And there's still a whole lot, even with autonomy, there's still so much potential in that space. And I would still be a long-term investor, but it's okay to make adjustments. Like I've been over the past couple of weeks, there's a couple people I would call and just saying, hey, what do you think about what's going on? Because I think a lot of stuff will happen. And so it's important to sometimes it takes a day or two just to take everything in. Obviously I know for you kind of have to jump on it and give a reaction. So you're probably more used to that. But for me, a lot of times I kind of just have to call a couple of friends, kind of, talk about some of the changes that are going on. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of the changes that are happening right now, they may seem drastic, but at the end of they're making big transitions from kind of going from, it's kind of sad to say legacy auto, but like just an auto company really to just pushing that money towards AI. And you see how many updates they're sending for FSD now. I mean, in a matter of 2 weeks, they've gone from 12.3.4 to 12.3.6 or something. They're iterating a lot right now. And the increase of FSD miles is only going to be exponential from here on out, given how many people that they've turned on for the free trials or getting free 3-month trials from purchasing vehicles. So I know, it's just one of those things you have to take it with a grain of salt. It's kind of like when crazy accusations come about Elon, you kind of have to sit back and wait. But if you're kind of flailing from one side to the end, and unfortunately, I've even seen some good friends do that, like Tesla bulls. So I'm not going to say names here, but it has been really sad. But a lot of those people, to be honest, are either new to the block and really haven't, this company, just again, like, what is it, 6 years ago? It's not even that much time. It feels a long time ago, but when you think of COVID in the middle of that, it feels like 3 years ago. It's, this company was literally going bankrupt and people were saying all the same things. Hey, we need a new CEO. Elon's not the right guy. Elon's saying political things. I mean, this stuff nothing is new. He's probably more vocal now, but it's the same story. But ultimately, we know Elon can deliver. He always delivers late. But the good thing is now he is steering the ship towards AI, towards, solving this. And that's what we have, as long-term investors, we all knew was going to happen. We just didn't exactly know at what inflection point was he going to be all in on it. We know he always has been, but now he's actually like, all right, let's pull back here and let's move that expense over there.
Well, also, like Herbert said, like, you're looking at a person who is literally a world leader and he's not even doing it. You know what I mean? It's just, it just happens. Like, this is a guy that can go to any country and make deals that nobody has ever been able to make in history, like he did with China and everything that's happening. So you want him out? Who the heck would you put in? Like, there's nobody that could do what he's doing. So, and it sucks to say this, like people losing their jobs and everything like that, but Elon's been more right than he's been wrong. And it hurts a lot of people in certain situations, but I mean, this is one of those times where you're just going to have to see if he's right or he's wrong. And typically he's been pretty right and ahead of the curve on a lot of things.
And then, I mean, if every couple of years they lay off 9%, 10%, 6%, that's nothing compared to the growth of the company. Now we're at 140,000 employees. And so they're hiring more than they're letting people go because the company is succeeding, right? And the other thing that I've been discussing with people is that, 3 years ago, or 2018, people invested it because of Model 3. And then they go, well, the market price is, at $400, this company was valued at $1 trillion. That's way too high. Absolutely true. But it's not just about the auto business, right? Now, but the company is completely different than it was in 2018, because at that time, they did not have progress with the bot. They did not have progress with FSD. They don't have the progress with energy, and whatever else might come. So the TAM for this company is 10 times, 100 times bigger than it was at 2018. So that's sort of my, like, when people go, well, it already 20x at that point. How's it going to go from here? Well, take a look at the opportunity that this company is dominating and may end up winning a big part of it. Even they just win a bit of the robotaxi, just a bit of bot, they're worth 10, 20 times what they are today, right? We'll see I don't know what the stock price is going to happen, but certainly in terms of sales and the company's size and growth, so I'm not worried about the layoffs. Like, at the end of the day, it's a small bit of the growth that we're actually seeing.
Yeah, and I think it could have been Sawyer. He put out, I think, all the dates in the past 10 years that they had done
Yep.
layoffs.
Saw that.
And
Mhm.
unfortunately, this is part of what happens at Tesla. They lay off, anywhere from 7 to 10% every
Mhm.
2 to 3 years. So, and I think there was a really good video from Carpathy several years back where he talked about
Yeah.
the Elon Musk methodology, and he loves very small, highly technical teams. And so I think for him, if he's getting the sense that these teams are getting a little bit bloated or they need to change directions, he's going to make those moves. And so, but yeah, unfortunately, this is part of it. And also, too, if you really think about it, when you're looking at a company that is, runs or makes physical products, the margins are not going to be as high as, let's say, some of these advertising companies or, the search companies like Google and the margins are so much lower. And so Tesla already has the best margins in the auto business. But again, at the end of the day, when you need to pull levers, you have to get rid of costs sometimes because you're dealing with lower margin businesses compared to, like, let's say, other tech companies where their cost of revenue is like 90%, or literally like their is 10% is their cost of revenue, and their margin is literally 90%, their gross profit. And where versus Tesla, it's it's a potentially 40 to 50% of the cost of the car is literally the cost of the good. And so it's a different beast. And so, like, when you're looking at like the Amazons of the world, again, where they're kind of brick and mortar and retail, or even some of these other companies, the margins, they have to squeeze every dollar out of every margin, versus some of the other companies, they don't. They're just printing money, or they could stop everything that they're doing and they're still going to be making money, versus Tesla has to continue to produce cars, at least at the moment. They still need to make updates to FSD to get people bought into obviously purchasing their cars, at least at the moment right now. So it's but I think, again, in the future, I think even with FSD, there's probably going to be multiple players, kind of like with phones and kind of like with other major offerings. And so, I'm not, I think there can be multiple players in the field. But I think with that said, I mean, so yeah, we know that the sentiment has been pretty negative up until probably this past week, maybe past 2 weeks. But there's really no, like, I think the thing I want to stress here, and we're going to get into the China FSD thing. And I would love to know, Herbert, even if going into last weekend, if you were expecting that, because we know he delayed the India trip, right? He delayed the India trip. But there is no other man on this planet that can get on an airplane and go make things happen. There's no other than maybe the president of the United States. But I would even say at this point, at least from just, I'm not talking like dealing with wars and other things, but just getting, things done. There's really no one else better than Elon, or anyone even that has those type of cards in their wheelhouse. You know what I mean? And so here Elon jumps on a plane, and next thing you know, I think we had like a 15% pop on Monday. And, I think the stock soared as high as like 190, maybe a little bit over that. And Tesla clears regulatory hurdles for full self-driving in China. And I think it's awesome how well received Elon has been in China, to be honest. And more importantly, that Tesla has been able to actually build a business that they own in China, versus a lot of times you have to come in and have a subsidy with another company. So they are I think they're the first company ever, the US company ever, to actually own end-to-end their whole company, even though they weren't originally a Chinese started company, right? But Herbert, what were your thoughts when you saw this? And more importantly, was this even, so here we are hearing layoffs and all this other stuff. Like, did you even think, going to China and striking a deal on FSD was even going to happen?
No one knew that this was going to happen. He just canceled the India trip, and then several days later, he shows up there. A couple points on that. I am one who thinks that this was kind of strategically positioned, that he had already negotiated that he's going to go and meet Prime Minister Modi in India, and then he canceled it because I believe that China saw this happening, and then they said, okay, we'll buckle and we'll give you everything you need at this point. And that's why it was kind of a planned thing. I don't know if this is true or not, but you can see it. You can kind of see why, right? China and India are battling it out. China has built this auto industry out of nothing, and now they have hundreds and hundreds, and they're leaders now in electric vehicle. They're trying to go global, and if they don't have an autonomy solution, then all of that can go out to the waste. Here's India saying, hey, we want to be part of the equation too. Anyways, okay. Other than that, the other thing was somebody DM'd me and told me that Janet Yellen was going to China as well, and they purposely made her fly into another city and come in through the back door, basically, versus Elon flies right into Beijing, meets with the second guy in command, and just reaffirms the number one reason why Jim Chanos, a big short of Tesla, the thing he would always bring up was China is the biggest concern for Tesla, the just too much reliance on them at any moment. So when you see something like this, where you've got the top level, government officials giving the green light, which, like you were saying, John, I mean, it's an impossibility, right? Why would China, right, so concerned about data and privacy and military and all those issues? They released it. They opened it up. Tesla was able to, like, we were following all the events over the last year, where you remember that one. A lot of articles written that, China airport bans Teslas because they don't want Tesla's car, the cameras to be tracking that. And some of them were true, and some of them were false, like the regional parking lots. Well, now this was clarified. Every area is now open for Tesla. They keep all the data locally in the data warehouse. So you can see these pieces were happening over the year two, but you didn't know. You would still assume, just like I did, that China is going to be the last hurdle. Like, how can you even get them to agree because of the data and the issues? This was Herculean for Tesla to have accomplished, because China wants it as well, right? They want to give their Chinese automakers the ability to go global and just kill all the other car makers, German and American, if you don't have a solution. So I'm expecting, and I'm crossing my fingers. Of course, I don't know. Nobody knows. But I'm hoping that a lot of Chinese automakers, now that this has been approved by China's government, will then approach and be the first to sign deals with Tesla to licenses. And I'm sure that that's why they did this. They knew that their solutions were nowhere near as good as Tesla. That's, open arms, just like they did with the original Chinese deal. So I think this is much, much bigger than we realize. I just saw an article written today, and the guy correctly on CNBC was saying, hey, your people are jumping too much. All that they signed was just allowing full self-driving, just like you were able to do, beta testing it here in the US. Now you can do there. That's all true. That's absolutely true. So a lot of things we're saying might be, taken a little too far, but you can see that this isn't the case. There are now 3 or 4 things that happened that show you, that kind of lead up to that they're going to announce robotaxi, not just FSD, in August 8th, right? So you saw that Elon replied to somebody who said, hey, there's a big reason why he chose 88, right? Very, very prosperous, lucky number for China. And he replied, Elon said, right, saying, yeah, that is partly why I chose that. It's also the birthday of my children, my twins. But Grace Tao, who's the VP of Tesla, she also announced and said, watch out for robotaxi in 88, use the words robotaxi. So there's a few signals that might be the case. Again, conjecture, we don't know, but it still is a good sign.
Yeah, and I think at least for me, for when the news broke, I think it was really Sunday night, if not going into like early Monday morning, was, Tesla wants to become the world leader in full self-driving, right? The global leader. I mean, they also did that recent showcase. I believe it was Sweden, but somewhere in Europe. Yeah. And really, again, they're on the bleeding edge of really tackling this. And I mean, can you imagine though, if they had been tackling this like some of the other companies out there, like a Cruise or Waymo, it would take them decades to accomplish it that way. But imagine, like, I'm making this up, even if they legalized FSD outside of, let's say, major cities, it's going to do pretty well. I mean,
Yeah.
the amount of drives that I have, because I don't live in San Francisco. I live in the suburbs, and it does really well. And so it's just one of those things where, it's maybe in the major cities where it's a little bit rougher, but Tesla being able to come to China and make things happen, because I don't think, well, clearly they had probably been talking about it before, because they announced the 8.8 before.
Yeah.
And I actually
Right.
now that I think about it, it should have clicked that 8.8 obviously was like, prosperous numbers and things like that. But that didn't click. And so now that you're kind of mentioning it, it's all kind of coming full circle. But we know, again, Elon is just 2 or 3 steps ahead of everyone, if not 10 steps ahead of everyone. And so I thought, I was personally really excited when that happened. And it just continues to just showcase, like, Elon, he joked kind of more on the SpaceX side, patents are dumb, right? And he's not necessarily saying that. That was in context of SpaceX, but they are continuing to innovate and push all the thresholds, because that's their competitive advantage. It's going to be pumping out the bleeding edge technology, not necessarily filing a bunch of patents and making sure other people and enforcing them, right? So,
well, they move so fast anyways. Like by the time
Yeah.
you catch up, like people that are probably working on the FSD of 10, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? Like they're just so many years behind Tesla anyways, as it stands. But just remember, like all that talk about you can't do this with just cameras, and
Yes,
you
exactly.
need LiDAR, and you need all
Yeah.
this, and this is going to fail miserably. And now it's like everybody's like, well, you
Yeah.
don't hear any of that talk anymore.
Yeah. In addition to the tech, I think that's the business model that's going to be the most innovative that they're going to do, right? Like you're going to now be paid to own a car. This is not just a car, it's a robot on wheels. And so it's actually teaching Tesla to do other things in the, in the robot world, right? Understanding the real world, ideas, AI. But I'm very intrigued with the business model of owning a car, because you're going to be paid to actually send the electricity that's in your stationary battery to the grid. You're going to be paid to let data warehouses access your inference chip that's in your car. You're going to be paid as you let this car go off and be a robo-taxi. And then if you have Tesla's insurance and you have robo-taxi, then the price of what you're paying could be much less than if you did buy another or traditional cars. This is all going to be flipped on its head, right? And that's what he means by, all of our cars will now be 5 times the greatest asset reallocation ever automatically. And so by the time other companies get their robo-taxi out and ready, I think it's completely changed. Everything's totally different. I've been saying this, and a few people have agreed with me, which is I think that Model 3, Model Y sales will rise fast and go beyond their TAM, addressable market limits, because as FSD gets improved and gets better and better and better. But people kept saying, yeah, but no one knows this, right? 99.9% of people have no idea that FSD is getting better. So that might be true, but do you know what I mean? Like if you knew that you're comparing 2 cars and you knew that one is robo-taxi ready in the future, and you don't want to do it, but it still is capable to be done that way. And then you see the value of you'll see the value of used Teslas, and you'll see the value of new. It's just going to go up.
Yeah, one thing that broke this morning too, as we were literally probably waking up, was Tesla is now focused on a voice assistant versus the voice commands, and obviously this is just kind of this all goes back to where they're headed, which is AI and Grok. And imagine if they have even Grok kind of like rolling into that. And I know there has to be some type of collaboration.
Yeah.
But if you look at things like Siri, for example, I mean, how often, if at all, well, Joe, you don't know what Siri is like, but I don't know what the Android version is, but even the Google Assistant, right? How has that actually, got, at least for Siri, it has been trash for a decade now. And you're talking a whole decade now, and like it's gotten to the point where like I just stopped using it, right? So, you know, and I'd rather just type the message myself or press the button to call the person. It really is not helpful at all. So you know, Tesla being able to step into this, you know, they're gonna make a voice assistant that's gonna be better than Siri in probably less than a year. That's the crazy thing about it.
Yeah,
it's gonna be it's crazy. It's amazing. I mean, when he says these are robots on wheels, people again just go, yeah, sure, I get you. It's a cute term, but it's not. These are robots on wheels, and just like you know the Tesla bot and other bots, you can talk to it. It can talk to you back. It actually understands the world. So if you say to the car, "Hey, drive up past that," you know, we're too near the fire hydrant. You know, park. You need to park 10 feet away. It knows that that's a fire hydrant. It can maybe talk back to you and say, "Right, yeah, sorry about that." Whatever. You know, yes, I'll do it. Whatever. You know what I mean? It's just gonna be a completely different experience and capabilities of what you can do with your car. You'll develop a relationship. Some people think that these cars will come with personalities.
Yeah. Crazy times.
Yeah, I mean, Elon has said that, you know, at some point maybe the Tesla can talk back to you. So, you know, that may be happening sooner than we all think.
I don't know, Joe. That's pretty scary with your Cybertruck, man. What personality do you want to give it?
Especially if they train the personality to become like the owner.
Oh man! Can you imagine choosing different voices and stuff?
It's like to open the door, you need to give the press salute.
Press.
That would be
exactly.
Awesome.
Joe, you want to hit this one?
So I really wanted to ask Herbert about this. So the S&P reaffirming the BBB credit rating,
Yeah,
like
BBB.
what you know what I mean? Like, do we really care? What does it mean to you?
Well, of course, Alexandra follows this, and you've all seen her beautiful, beautiful chart. And it's an atrocious thing that S&P still gives a BBB rating when, you know, compared to all the other companies out there, Tesla's financials are the most solid, the greatest cash on hand, the, you know, cash flow, all the key things that they're doing. Risks are much lower. And so, yeah, they're still playing the game. They're giving it just BBB. But like you said, I don't think it matters at this point. The reason why it matters is because there's some institutional firms who, you know, I think some schools, some unions, they have it actually in their kind of like regulation that they're not allowed to invest in certain companies that have certain, you know, S&P ratings, debt ratings. So that's the, you know, the one reason about it. But end of the day, it's you know, it's not that big of a deal, but it's just one of those things, you know.
How wild is that to think is that there's companies out there that have no idea how great of a company this is and where they're headed because they're just looking at the spreadsheet.
They're looking at that BBBB, exactly, instead of a AAA, whatever. But you know, clearly Tesla it's embarrassing. That's why Alexandra Mertz does her table. You compare it to the others that get that, and you look at the metrics, and it truly is the strongest company, certainly of all the automakers. And then you compare it to even just the top, you know, the 50, the top S&P 500 or something like that, or the you know, top 5. Yeah.
So it's super vendetta at this point, you would think.
It is.
Like,
Yeah.
it's like, wow.
Yeah. That's why embarrassment is probably the thing that works the best, and Alexandra does such a good job. She almost single-handedly forced them to give at least a BBB rating, right? Because you have to just publicize this, show that they're, you know, their credibility is shot if they don't do this, and that's the only thing. Yeah.
Well, one of the things I wanted to get your thoughts on, Herbert, specifically, you know, kind of on more specifically on the supercharging decisions that were happening this past week. But we know that Tesla's continuing to make decisions to obviously grow the network, maybe not as fast, obviously at a slower pace, but, you know, they're going to be more focused on uptime and expansion of existing locations. What were your thoughts specifically when you saw the decision to, you know, really pull back on the supercharging team? And as we know, as, you know, I would say, I guess we could say we call ourselves early adopters of EVs. We know that one of the biggest gaps is range anxiety. And so I think, even people that have hit me up, it's like, that's like the one thing that's like stopping, that's like no longer investing in gas stations or stations. And so, what were your thoughts when you heard about the pullback on the Supercharger team? And, how do you think that this will impact either the test experience or really electric vehicles future?
So my thoughts have been changing quite a bit on this. You're absolutely correct. My wife actually said to me, "Hey, what's going on with the superchargers?" And she's not somebody who follows Tesla very much, but she's my gauge. If she heard something, I said, "Oh, you heard about that, right?" It means that the public out there has heard about it, and that's what. So you're absolutely correct that I think that the consumer out there, that's what they heard. Superchargers, oh my God. Range anxiety is the number 2 reason why people don't buy electric vehicles. And so this is, in terms of like the understanding of buyers, this is damaging to that. The number 1 is cost, right? Of course. And, but so the original reaction I had was, we don't know nobody here outside of Tesla, outside of Elon knows exactly the impact of this. And yes, there is a potential that he is impetuous and he just did it because he was upset or he wasn't impressed. That's a possibility. But at the end of the day, I think you brought this up. I think Sawyer brought this up. Omar did. There's been many times in the past that he has laid off people. He's laid off the full departments, and it always turned out well for the company. So I trust that he knows what he's doing. Now, my first original reaction was, I think this is fine, because my thought was, hey, it's just another thing, right? If you're not seeing a tremendous growth, it's going to be about the same growth as you had last year in terms of your sales of electric vehicles. You're seeing that all the other American automakers have pulled back their plans. And so what we have now is fine. And there's no need for that to grow. They have automated the ability to build the superchargers in the factory. That part's not changing. We don't know who made up the 500. I think we've heard from the actual people laid off that it is the 500 group, but they're the people that are identifying new locations, negotiating with the jurisdictions, and project planning it to implement it, right? So that's one option, is that it's flat, and then they're reinvesting that money this year on AI. So in that case, I'm perfectly happy and fine with that. The other thing that comes to mind is that Elon goes, why are we have so many people doing this? Why is Tesla? Why is the Tesla the one responsible for this? There's been a couple large oil and gas companies in Europe and also in the US who have announced that they are going to implement, charging systems, of which many of them are partnering with Tesla, to implement it in their gas stations, their retail stations. Why aren't we doing more of those? Let those kind of companies, why not Starbucks and McDonald's? They should buy it from us and let those be the locations. Do we actually need to have supercharger locations, more of that this year? So it's probably a combination of those things. I'm not as concerned. I mean, the other option would be, maybe he's thinking maybe we should automate just like we've automated how fast we can make the superchargers and we just plop them in now. Why aren't we automating the speed of how to find these locations and implement it? The final thing that somebody wrote up a whole, kind of analysis on, and I'm starting to think about it, but most people I've been talking to still don't agree, which is maybe he's thinking that if it is a robo-taxi future, how he said there in his tweet, we're going to focus on our existing locations, make sure it's 100% uptime. But it could also be that they're going to implement and have the wireless chargers implemented, so you just drive up. Because if you're a robo-taxi, you're going to need to have places to charge, and there's nobody there to plug it in. Maybe that's what he's thinking. Let's refocus, instead of spreading more. Let's make them wireless, some of them more wireless. That one initially I thought, okay, that actually makes sense, and then now I'm going, I'm not sure yet. I'm not ready to make that. I don't know if that could be the case, but it's viable. It's an option.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, I think it really is just, I think what's been probably going through Elon's head probably over the past 5-6 months has been, what is work, or like, where are we headed? One, and then, what's working, what's not working. Obviously, the advertising, he said, officially, it was like the shareholder meeting, I believe a year ago. he was like, to meet Kevin, he was like, hey, sure, I'll give it a shot. We'll give it a shot. So they had this whole team. And it sounds like it was actually a growing team. I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head. But the reality is that they tried it out. It clearly at least wasn't impressing Elon, or more importantly, wasn't, meeting their goals. So what are they doing? Gone. And I think it's just, it's one of those things where he's like, okay, that doesn't make sense also too, because vehicle growth is slowing. But I think I would agree with you, that the first thing that came, just because, I work in like finance, like the first thing that came to my mind when they cut the whole Supercharger team, and who knows, they may even hire back some of the people that they've laid off. They may not get rid of everyone. They may keep a core team, or they're rebuilding, and it may look like something else. Maybe it's a part of a different organization. So who knows really like what exactly is on their mind, but yeah, their cars are not growing as much. And so, it doesn't make sense to be growing your Supercharger network at a faster clip than potentially your overall car growth. We do know that there probably was some catch up from the previous years. Like, for example, like service centers, they have not been growing as much as like the car growth was happening over the past 5 years. So they're playing catch up. Now, maybe they're pulling back a little bit on, even the service center expansions and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's I think it really comes down to, what is our focus? What are we doing? And I think that with the marketing team gone, and potentially even with the Supercharger team, I think it's just, it's coming down to that shift of like, hey, we trial and error. We tried for the marketing team. Yeah. We tried that, didn't work out. Go ahead.
And reinvention too, right? Because, this is Elon thinking through first principles. And so I was one of the early members and founders of WAMA, Word of Mouth Marketing Association, in 2008.
Wow.
And at the time, the thinking was, and you do all the research and you find out that advertising on TV and all the traditional advertising is effective. Absolutely, right? But actually, the more effective than all the advertising added up together is word of mouth marketing, right? It's more than 50% of a success of a product or business. So if you build the right product, and if you facilitate helping your own, you know how it is, right? There's evangelists, there's neutrals, and then there's detractors, and then you get your score. And then so if you have so many evangelists, then you want to take advantage of them, give them the tools to spread the word, and they're already going out of their way to tell people how much they love you. So, you can see that Elon got rid of the marketing team, which just to be very clear, I don't know how many people keep telling me, and I'm like, I'm not anti-advertisement. I think any company, every company, regardless if you're doing word of mouth, should be advertising. You should be education. You should not be not advertising. Okay. The argument I've had with people is that I do not agree with those who said that instead of cutting the price in January of last year from 20%, they should have kept the price at 30% margin and had advertised in lieu of the price cut. That was my argument. You don't do advertising in lieu of price cuts. There's a strategic reason why you need to do that. Anyways, I think that he's gotten rid of the marketing team, and then you saw that he's actually turned off the referral program, the existing referral program, but it's coming back. So just wait. I think that he might have thought this through. There's going to be some sort of more innovative new referral program, and that's going to be where he's thinking first principles, right? Which is, I have this fan base, we have this amazing group who knows the car better than, by the way, I go to bring my car to these salespeople at Tesla, the service centers. They know nothing about the car. They know nothing about the business. We know more than they do.
Yeah.
And it is a little shocking because they don't necessarily own the car themselves, right? So anyways, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, I do know that fixing Teslas are different than even the historical, legacy auto. I mean, and Joe and you and I actually had a conversation about this the other day about there's a company called EV Republic. who are they're true engineers. They live up in Sacramento. You can actually like bring your car there. They can take your 75D Model X, throw 100D in it if you want. But they can actually, if you have an issue with your battery, they go in, they'll replace the cells and actually like finagle with it. Versus I think a lot of the employees, the technicians at Tesla are probably capable of doing that, but that's not also how they're running the business. Like one of the techs was telling me the other day that, a lot of times, when they are dealing with an issue, a lot of times they're pulling up the instructions and, pretty much tackling it that way. And then as you get more experience, you see other issues, then, you'll learn and kind of grow. And that's just like any business. Like, for example, the Cybertruck, it's very new. And so a lot of issues that are coming up now or people are seeing, there's not necessarily going to be super, super experienced technicians on this. They're all learning because this is the latest technology. But it's definitely one of those things where, you can't expect the people at the sales and service center to know all these things. Oh, did you see what you guys are offering next month? They probably have, they may not have any idea. And some of them do, like I've met some of them who've become multimillionaires because they've been at Tesla for 8 years and they got stock as a technician. And they've told me that's the only way that they're here is because they can afford a home and stuff because of the Tesla stock.
Wow.
So, but one thing I wanted to close with was actually, so first off, Herbert, thanks again for joining us. But I can't believe how fast time flies. It's already 53 minutes in. So this broke. So shout out to Sawyer who broke this earlier this week. And, so the news was that Tesla secured probably the largest battery contract ever in Australia history. And it's over $650 million. And so, this is like huge, especially a country. I mean, you're talking a whole country investing almost $1 billion into battery storage, let alone energy storage. So it's like, this was huge, especially as we kind of all know. I feel like the market for batteries and really for solar is going to be unlimited, right? Like people are always there's always going to be storage that's going to be, or there's always going to be sun that needs to be stored somewhere, right? And used for something. But Herbert, what were your thoughts when you saw this news? And what have your thoughts been on the energy business as a whole?
Yeah, absolutely. So, remember a year ago, Elon went around and he met with every single prime minister, president of every country in Europe. And there was a theme to all of that, right? He was shaking hands with everybody. 9 out of the 10 were the top economies of the world. The only one he did not visit was Japan. And what's going to happen is every single one of these countries, like Italy and France and UK, they're all going to be buying megapack factories. And they're going to need to build these massive, the thing you just showed, right? This purchase of these energy systems. And it's like, again, I don't know if Elon planned this, he knew this years ago, or this is all just luck. But in 2 years, the thing that's going to be worth more than gold is batteries and energy, because they need to power the data warehouses of the AI machine learning, the chips, right? The compute power that every country, every company needs to have. Amazon just bought a data warehouse, a data center that's right inside, like right in the vicinity of a nuclear power plant. Like they did this last year. And there was this great thread, and I don't know who the people were, but this one guy was asking the other guy, like the guy was saying that, they're having challenges on trying to, create the compute that's required, but connecting between disparate locations. And then the guy said, well, why did you have to why not just co-locate into one location? And he said that at a certain point, I don't remember the number, I think it's like 10,000 H100s. At that point, it will take down the grid of that state. So they need to have, a data center here and a data center there and a data center there, and they're dealing with the connections and all that. So that's how important energy is going to be for every data center that you're going to see popping up everywhere. And then the most recent job opening, you saw that Tesla's hiring for somebody, and they said a one of a kind, it's first of its kind data center. And this person is supposed to help build these first of a kind data centers. So you wonder what that means, right? Is it just a data center, or maybe it's a data center combined with the battery packs and mega packs so they can power those data centers, right? This is going to be the biggest limiting factor. That the demand this year is all these chips from NVIDIA. In a couple of years, it's going to be these energy mega packs from Tesla.
Right.
and there's lots of other competitors. I'm not saying they're the only ones, but it's like the demand for these are going to go through the roof. Every country is going to want a mega pack factory. They're going to need it.
Yeah, and really, that's the future. I mean, having a solar and batteries on my house, it's freeing knowing that someone else can't dictate when I can utilize power or not. Like Pacific Gas and Electric and they own, I think, like half of California's PG&E, and they've been bankrupt several times, and yet they still exist. But they can dictate, hey, when you can and can't have power. And so, but yeah, that's interesting with the data center. That could be an interesting twist. So first off, make sure your vote is heard. I know I voted. I have my funds in a couple of places, so I made sure to vote in both places. And this is going to be one of probably Herbert, I don't know how much you specifically have covered this, but, I think this is going to be one of the most important votes probably since, the early days of Tesla, or more recently since 2018, because I think this could dictate how long-term Elon is going to be at this company. And I personally do not think that you want someone to, someone else to run this company. I think this is the man. Elon Musk is the man that you want to solve full self-driving and continue to help with the humanoid, the next gen platform, all of this. He's the guy. Whether you agree with him politically or not is outside of the question. But he's the guy to lead them to this next transition. So make sure you cast your vote. Herbert, I don't know, do you want to add in 30 seconds
Sure.
there?
Yep, absolutely. So I think that this is the most important thing that ever happened to Tesla's history. We need to vote him in right back, give him back his 2018 re-ratify that compensation plan. It's the biggest risk if you're a Tesla investor. Honestly, it is the biggest risk I'm most concerned about. So Alexander Mertz said that the two most important votes that you need to really pay attention to is the movement of the headquarters of incorporation into a state of incorporation, I meant to Texas, and of course re-ratify the 2018 comp plan. But actually, the move to Texas is more important. That is actually the more important. But regardless, obviously, all of this is critical. And even if we win those, it's not the end. There's going to be a lot of things that need to happen.
Yeah.
But we need to win this, and this is not a done deal. This is not something that we can just say rest our laurels and we're fine. You need to vote. If you're a Tesla investor, you need to come in and vote. So everybody's getting their emails now. If your broker hasn't sent you that email, please go and call them at this point, because I've already voted from multiple different brokers. I got their emails already. And be careful, because some people are posting on X and saying, I voted. Great, please do that. But don't show your control number. If somebody sees your control number, it's very simple for them to go to a website, put in that control number, and change your vote, whatever you did. So if you did show your control number on the screen on X, immediately delete that tweet and then go back the night before, I think June 12th, whatever it is, before the actual ending of the vote, come back in, check your website, make sure that it didn't change, because somebody could have changed it at the very last second. So just be very, very careful about that.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Yeah, well, so pay attention to that. And then if you like people like Brighter with Herbert, you want to hear him talk, you want to see his face, you want to meet him, maybe you're a fan of him, or a lot of other great speakers like Alexandra, Jeff Lutz will be there. We have Franz von Holzenhausen, Jared Isaacman, a lot of Kim Java, Dr. Know-It-All, a lot of amazing people coming to speak. And so if you are free July 27th through the 28th, you have been notified xtakeover.com to buy your tickets. It's going to be an amazing weekend. They have all been amazing, but this year is going to be extra special, just given the people that are coming. The launch really into like including SpaceX into the conversation. So make sure you buy your tickets. Go to xtakeover.com, and we look forward to seeing you there. So thank you for tuning in this week. Thank you for Herbert for joining us this week. Make sure you give him a follow. He's tagged on YouTube in the description, along with even actually in the title. And then on X, please give him a follow as well. So thank you again, Herbert, for your time this week.
Yeah, no problem. Joe, am I going to get a ride in your Cybertruck when I go to Takeover?
Yes, sir.
I'll drive it? You'll let me drive it?
Yeah, man, of course.
Yeah, you can even drive mine too, man. Whatever works.
I'm looking forward to that.
We'll see everyone there and see you guys next week at 8 a.m. on Friday.
All right, guys. Thanks.